G'day students. The second model that I want to suggest to you is Hertzberg's two-factor theory for explaining motivation in workplace employees, motivation of employees in the workplace. I start with the textbook. So this is the Bomb for Queensland textbook that you guys have all got. And it's important to note that this theory came from Maslow's theory of human needs. And he said rather than a hierarchy of needs, so if you remember Maslow's, they started at physical needs and moved up through safety to relatedness and so on, he replaced that with two sets of factors that he described. The first are hygiene factors. So hygiene factors would include things like your pay and your job security, working conditions, how well you get on with people in the organisation. They're the hygiene factors. And he said these things have the ability to cause dissatisfaction. They don't necessarily motivate someone, but they could cause someone to be less happy at work. The second set of factors were the satisfiers or the motivation factors. So these include achievement, enjoying the work, getting recognition, having responsibility. That's the big one that we talk about. Autonomy is sometimes a word. How much control have you got over decision making in your workplace and opportunities for advancement? These factors, these motivational factors or satisfiers, they're the factors that can create job satisfaction. So it comes down to this, that in this model, it's the second set that are useful in motivating employees. Let's have a think about these things from the perspective of my business, Subway. Right? There were a couple of these things that weren't being satisfied, hygiene factors that Subway could look at. Right? So there were some issues around pay. Were people getting paid properly when they closed up in the shifts at night? Were there really good relations in the business? Because you're often working in a small team with different people. So there were a couple of those that could be addressed. But with the Subway example, it seems that there's a lot of opportunity to work in amongst these motivational factors. How could you make the work more enjoyable? You might give more responsibility to people, give them different roles that they have. So for example, they might start to take some responsibility for ordering or working out timetables, rosters. Achievement, how do you acknowledge when staff are doing a really good job? We've talked a little bit about responsibility and what are the opportunities for advancement? Can you build some other opportunities into the workplace? Now I sent you an email and I've mentioned a couple of times that there's another website that I quite like, whatishumanresources.com. And there are a number of theories here. Really important, you do not have to choose one of the theories I've gone through with you. You can choose another theory. It's probably best not just to make up a theory, use one that exists already. So a second theory that you could use is the Hertzberg two-factor theory. This is the one we're talking about, but this is their information on it. And talks a little bit about the study, how that came from, and looks in a little more detail about the different factors. So the hygiene factor is still called exactly the same. So pay, is it a reasonable pay structure? What are the policies? Right? Is there some flexibility? Are there other benefits that can be offered? Not a lot, but maybe in Subway situation you can think about what can be done in giving staff some meals at different times. What are the working conditions like? How do you create some status within the organisation? Give them some responsibility? How do you provide job security? Is there a way of doing that a little bit better? So an example perhaps with Subway is that maybe they could have a system where once you're working in a Subway store, you get recognised for your experience so that you can go and work in any of the Subway stores around the place. So you've got more security that you'll always be able to get some work with Subway. Right? And then we go to the motivational factors. Right? And the thing I like about this website is they give you a little bit of information here. Right? So how do you praise and recognise the accomplishment of employees? Right? So this actually gives you a little poll that you could use. You could do a little Google search and get some more information. And there's a link between employees being satisfied and employees staying in their job which is quite a positive thing. So sense of achievement. How do they grow in the job? And growth and promotional opportunities. How they organise. And this is, again, I think this is where Subway could really do some extra work, including responsibility and interesting work. And that's a bit of a challenge in the Subway situation. How are you going to make that work particularly interesting? So there's a lot more information on the model there. It's one that you could use. It builds on from Maslow and could be quite interesting to compare as your second model against Maslow or against any other model that you choose.